Right, what have we got today? Bush, it's a Rovyvon, so it's quite a long time since I did a Rovyvon. I think the last one I did was the A8, the Aurora A8. I liked it. It's one slight problem, and I realised other companies copied their design, you know, the Nightcore Tiki and all of that, the Jet Beam Mini one. The problem I had with it was flickering. That has been fixed. That's been mentioned numerous times by people in the comments section, so thank you for those updates. I'll try and get a new one, but I can't test every light, so I'm not avoiding certain lights. Even, you know, companies which I think, oh, they're not very good, I'll still get the lights and test them. And there's nothing wrong with RovyVon. There's always seems to be something where I think, but if they just fix this, it would be better. So with that in mind, I saw this and I thought, right, I'll get a hold of this. So I got a hold of a RovyVon A21. So there's the A21 there. They're calling it the Aurora A21, but in this review, I'm just going to refer to it as the A21, a small EDC light. So very interested in these. You know, I like keychain lights. I've got like 40-50 of them now or something ridiculous like that. I've got a lot, and I give a lot away to friends and family and things like that, for people's keychains, for their cars in the back gardens, walking the dog, all sorts of things like that. They have a use, and they don't always have to be the most powerful, you know. They don't have to be a 40,000 lumen sort of, you know, candela cannon. They don't have to be like that. They're there when you need them. My idea has always been, sometimes the best flashlight is the one that you have to hand, and the one that I always have to hand, whether I'm carrying one or not, is on the car keys or the house keys. It's there, you go for it, bang. I currently carry a Nightcore Tiki. So with that in mind, I'll carry this. I'll put this all back together just so you can see exactly what you get in a retail box. But I mean, I have carried this for 3 weeks now. I normally carry things for 2 weeks, but it's been 3 weeks and it's held up remarkably well, actually. I'm very impressed. So RovyVon Aurora A21, there's two versions of this. So there's one which comes with, they come with different emitters. When I'm talking about emitters, it's just the LED which produces the light. So you can get the Cree Xp HD. HD stands for high discharge, I think. And you will get a maximum lumens of 1000. Although if you look in the manual, it's weird, it says 1100, so okay, maybe it's over 1000 or around the 1000 mark. However, you also have the option to go for the Nichia or Nichia, however you want to pronounce that. I'll say Nichia. Nichia 219C it happens to be. You lose some of the lumens, so the maximum is only 700 rather than around 1000, but you get a higher CRI and you get a different tint. The Cree only comes in a 6500 Kelvin value, which is cool white. It's quite a harsh light, so more like something like that. There's a white light, so very white, and totally different to the light you get from this, which is more neutral. So it's around, I think the quoted is 5000 Kelvin, so around sort of sunlight on a sunny day on planet Earth anyway. But we'll go over all those, don't worry. It is USB rechargeable, and you can run it for 72 hours. Amazing, incredible. There's a load of other things. I'm not going to read all these. I'll go through them as I do this, and I will open this up. And I got the one in the army green. You can get a grey one, but I thought that looked boring. I thought, you know, battleship grey, it's one of the most boring things you can get. So let's get it out and I'll show you what I got. So like I say, retail package, so nothing else in there. Bush, get that in the bin. There's the manual, there's your little warranty, whatever. I never look at them. Two things, and the unit itself. So I'll get that out. Bush, get that in the bin. Right. So there's your cable to charge it. I've been using my own, but I will show you that the cable that they provide comes with it. It's a micro USB. Boo! I prefer Type C, but okay, we'll cover that. So let's see what accessories you get here. So you get a split link, which helps you attach that to your keys. It's a nice big one. It's not one of these rubbish small ones. I like that, and it's easy to open with a nail there. One of the things I did like on this, although I didn't carry it on the keys, I carry it in various pockets, so I didn't use this split link or one of my own. I just used the night eyes and I hooked it on here, so there's no damage that I can see. I'm recording this in 4K, so you can feel free to scrutinize this footage, but I can't see any. In fact, I'm extremely happy with this. There's a few little scuffs, and the metal might have a few tiny little dings, very, very tiny, but I've been extremely impressed with the longevity of this. I think this is made from, and I'll tell you, rather than polycarbonate, it's something like polyamide or something. Polyamide, I think. Let's have a look. It should say somewhere here. I can't be bothered to read that. Off the top of my head, I think it's polyamide. The only reason I actually, when I looked at that, I thought polyamide, I've heard that somewhere before. I'm quite into the PB Swiss tools, and I noticed on the PB Swiss hammers, the ones that have the white plastic bits, the inserts for the professional hammers, that's polyamide. and they quote that as being, you know, very tough and long lasting and hard wearing. So, and I can say, yeah, okay, the same has been true on this. It's been very hard wearing. I've knocked this about, I've thrown it in and out of bags, it's been in and out of pockets, exceptionally hard wearing, so I've got no problems with that, so well done. There's no anodization on this to come off, although there seems to be a colour applied to this aluminum part here, but again, it hasn't come off, it's been perfect. I mean, this bit you can screw off, look, just to show you. I'll not do it in this review, but you can screw this off to get to the O-ring and the TIR there, but I'll cover that in a moment. And in that regards, you get a spare O-ring, so there's a spare one if you happen to shred it, because it can be done, but you shouldn't really be taking that off anyway. Make sure that's all in and your USB flap is seated to, you know, protect it from water and things like that. So boosh, get rid of that. There's your charging cable, which I shall show you in a moment. Feels okay, you know, it's just a type micro USB. In other words, it has to go in one way around. You can't put it in either way. It's not like the newer type C. So type A and micro USB. So I'll show you that in a second. You also get a lanyard. I can't imagine using something as small as this than the lanyard. The lanyard's bigger than the bloody item itself, so I can't see that really being needed. But okay, you get one anyway, and it's a good one. It feels like a double skinned one. Very, very soft. Higher quality than I would expect from a lot of the manufacturers. It doesn't have a spring cinch, it's a movable cinch, but because this is so thick, that doesn't actually move very much, so it does stay in position. But I would prefer to have seen a, you know, a spring loaded one, but it doesn't matter. Let's just check the quality of the connector here. So I'll pull that until it hurts. Ow, ow, ow. You can see the indent there. I am doing that, I'm not cheating here. Yeah, fine. No movement, no silly noises, didn't feel funny, hasn't come out, fine. I don't use it for something like this, but the lanyard is high quality. Boosh, get rid of that. So let's look at the item itself. So very, very nice, and like I say, the polyamide has been really good. It's not polycarbonate, although I'm not having to go at polycarbonate. I've got polycarbonate EDCs, and they don't show any wear, especially when they've been on car keys and things like that. So, you know, but I haven't seen any marks on this, because I was sort of thinking, well, why have they picked that material? But they have, and it comes with a large TIR. So that TIR just stands for total internal refraction. So what's happening there is, I mean, you know, I'll quickly cover this. Here's another example of a TIR here. So some of you, but what you can actually go for in a lot of lights are, I mean, here's a classic one. So this happens to be the LED in the middle there, and then you have like a reflector around it, you know, that's trying to reflect the light. That happens to be an orange peel. You can see it's got a non-standard surface. It's not smooth. You can see it's sort of pitted there, a bit like an orange peel. That's more of your traditional one. The problem with that is you get this spot, and up close it can be too much. So I'll show you. If that happens to be at a higher setting, it can obscure detail. So you see how it's obscuring that T to a degree. Not very much, but to a degree it's certainly obscuring it, isn't it? And then you can pull back to mitigate that, but you don't generally need to do that with TIRs. With a TIR, even at a high setting, and I'll show you, I'll turn that light off. So this happens to have a high setting, so we'll turn that on. Even at that's at 1,000 lumens there, and here's the light here. Just like, no, I haven't pulled it way back. It is just off camera here. That doesn't seem to be obscuring it very much, does it? Reason being is this is spreading the light out nicely. Generally, you'll find EDC lights, keychain lights, anything for up close will tend to go for a TIR. It makes sense because you get a nice diffuse light that doesn't obscure anything, and it's more pleasant to work by. You haven't got this ridiculous hotspot and then some spill, and then you're trying to move this hotspot out the way because it's getting on your nerves, and ridiculous. It makes more sense, and a lot of the lights that I've compared it to are all TIR. So I'll just show you a quick handful. So here's some of the ones that I use to compare it to, all TIRs. So you'll notice there's a theme going here. It happens to be something, I actually put up a post just recently asking subscribers anyway. I said, when it comes to EDC, you know, like a keychain light, do you prefer something more throwy or floody? And the vast majority of people said floody. On a small light up close, you're going to be using it, you know, between you and your feet or just close by. Floody is generally better. It's more pleasant to use. So I think they've made a decent choice in that matter. Like I say, it comes in the Cree Xp HD, which goes up to 1,000. I went for the Nichia, the 219C, I think it is off the top of my head. Let's have a look. Yes, it is, yeah. Nichia 219C, meaning that I'm only going to get 700 lumens. However, this has a to me, a more preferable tint. So it's 5000 Kelvin. In other words, more like sunlight. It's less of the cool white. And the color rendering index is 90 plus. And we'll discuss that now actually. So I did do some testing. So they're claiming 5000 Kelvin. In fact, yeah, I'll bring up some figures here. There's my figures. Okay, so I had a look, and the CRI I got, in other words, color rendering index, was way above 90. It was fantastic. It was 96.9. So if you imagine natural light during the day is 100%, so you're getting the full color gamut. Some of the Crees and things like that, some of the cheaper ones, you'll get around the 70 mark. They're okay, they're fine. You wouldn't use it if you were a photographer, and it can be, it's less representative of real life, isn't it? Because you're not getting all the colours in the colour gamut, unfortunately. As you head down lower than 70, it becomes irritating. So the higher the better for me, but it's not a necessity. And at the end of the day, if this is a keychain light, do you really care? Are you really that much of a snob? I am, but just bear in mind, you may not be, so you may not need to think about that. So I got 96.9. Tint wise, they're saying 5000 Kelvin. I got close to that, and I realised my testing could have issues, but I'm generally quite close. I came up with 4838 off the top of my head, so pretty decent. And then you can also see that I did some testing on flicker. There's no annoying flicker. I did test for that. It's certainly, if there is any, it's unnoticeable. I tried it on all the different settings. I couldn't notice it, which is good, because if you remember my review of the old A8, I think it was, very irritating and unnecessary. Okay, so that's fantastic. So let's get rid of that there. Okay, so back to the light here. So this is an IP68. IP just stands for ingress protection. In other words, stopping things getting in. So IP68, the first figure refers to dust. This is dust proof. If that's screwed in and that's seated properly, you know, dust isn't going to get in and go behind the lens and all sorts of annoying things like that. And the second figure after the 6 is 8, meaning this is waterproof. You can dunk that right in water, a meter of water, stick it there for an hour, not a problem. Good, I like that. And again, make sure that's properly screwed down and properly seated, and you should get that. Excellent. I like IPX8. It means you don't have to worry no matter how much it rains, or if you fall in a lake or whatever, you're covered, so no problems there. And it's pretty light. It's about 46 grams in total, so pretty good. It's slightly head heavy, so if I hold it like that, it's slightly drooping. Again, because it's so light and you're going to hold it like that, not really an issue. The center point is there where you would probably have your finger anyway as the balance point, so I didn't have any problems with that. Has a 1.5 meter drop rate, and I thought it was going to be higher. Bearing in mind it's sealed, so there's no battery moving around, and it's got this polyamide or whatever they're using. I thought that would be higher, so a bit weird, but okay, it's 1.5 meters. They're saying if you drop that into concrete, you should be fine. Okay, I'll take their word for it. Okay, so before I go into the UI, I'll just show you how you would recharge this, because it's just a little flap here, and you can do it one-handed. Look, see, comes out. It's micro USB, unfortunately. So I'm you know, it's a shame that we're still getting lights with micro USB. I don't want to carry yet another cable, so if I plug that in, so you plug it in like that, and I'll show you. Here's a charger that'll do. Type A goes in, if I can get it the right way around. There, and you see that's red there. There you will now. Right, so you get red when it's charging, and it charges at 5 volts there. Quite rapid though, 0.7 of an amp. That's not bad. 0.6, it's going down a little bit. When it's finished, that turns blue rather than green. I don't know why they picked blue, but they did. Maybe they picked green. They didn't want green because through a green shell it would look rubbish, so fair enough. So red when it's charging, then it turns blue. I found this to be very rapid, it's charging. So the cell can't be that big, but it was pretty rapid. Certainly higher than that at points, 0.8 at one point. So no problems with that. It didn't trickle away for hours and hours and hours, but it does work, so no problems with that. So the question is, does it work whilst it's charging? It does. There, you see. So another bonus there, it works whilst it's charging. If you're camping, you could put that on lower mode, so you do that, put it on the lowest mode there, let it charge. See, you know when I said it did charge more rapidly there, it was up to 1.1 amp. So you could leave that and charge it whilst doing that, whilst camping and cooking and things like that. So a useful feature I always like on lights, so nice to see. Okay, so we'll unplug that. That's your USB charging, and then like I say, unfortunately no type C, but not the end of the world. The flap itself is actually pretty decent. It's got a small lip on it, which the best ones do have. Can you see that there? In fact, if we zoom in a bit, see that lip there? Okay, and then we'll zoom back out. So that lip actually helps. So rather than just having a perfect fit, that lip makes it fatter in the middle and it stays in. So decent. Even though it stays in, you can't take it out with one hand, look. Well, I'm not going to be able to do it now, am I? There, with the thumb, bang, and then straight back in. So really like that. Okay, so, I mean, I'll discuss the UI and the button, but if you bear with me a few seconds, I'll just move all this rubbish out of the way. Right, tidier, that's better. Okay, so I like the clip a lot. It is removable with these two screws, which is nice to see. It isn't full length, but it doesn't need to be because this is so small, and it makes sense, and it's quite stiff, look. That seems like stainless steel, really decent. And I like how this is open, so that's another attachment option. You could attach it to a cord with that. The button's okay. It does seem to have, it's hard to see, but that black there, it seems to have an O-ring, which is a good sign. That means that's going to help with the waterproofing. The button itself is okay. It feels okay. I wish it was a bit bigger. And I don't know why they didn't recess it. The reason why it should be recessed is because, look, watch. If I just knock it against something, light turns on. Right, I'm not even trying there. So, and the problem is it doesn't have E-lock. If a light with no E-lock, why would you have a non-recessed button? It makes no sense. But okay, you know, I will mark them down for that. That's just me. So let's quickly go over the UI. Okay. So weirdly, if you want to go to the lowest mode, you've got to click 4 times just to get a moon, which is weird. I don't know why they didn't just use that. Like, it should have been click and hold or something. Anyway. So here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's moon. So moon is 1 lumen, although that's on a Cree. So on the Nichia here, it's half of that. It's 0.5, nice and low. You know, I like to see a nice low mode like that, so it doesn't ruin night vision. Excellent. The next mode is low. So if we turn it on, so we'll cycle through them. So you've got low, medium, high, and then turbo. Low, medium, high, turbo. So we'll go through those figures. So low is 40, then 170, 70, and then 1000. Or Nichia would be 30, 120, 450, and then 700. From off, you can get straight to it. Double press. Hang on, sorry, my mistake. So press and hold. Sorry, press and hold. I'll get you straight to your highest output, which is handy. You can just go straight to it. But of course, the problem with that is, you know, what happens if it presses against something in your bag, or or it's in some keys in your pocket? I don't know why they've done that. Why not have an E-lock? But okay. You also have a triple click, which is SOS. 1, 2, 3. I'll cover this and you'll see why. So that flashes out SOS in Morse code. You can go onto a secondary mode, which is strobe. So there's strobe. So you can't really quickly get the strobe, which is irritating. You know, for tactical purposes, you would want to quickly get to that, which is unusual. So I don't know if they've sat and thought about this UI that much, especially when there's no E-lock, which makes no sense. And it does have memory mode, so you can set it up so it will remember the last mode you used. Okay, fair enough. So there is a step down this. I mean, I'm just feeling it. It's not that hot, but what it'll do is it'll give you, it's a timed one rather than temperature. So it doesn't take a temperature check. You know, it's only like 55 degrees-ish or whatever. Not the case in this one. If you run that at its highest, it'll run for 1.5 minutes. Then it will step down and then keep running. So, okay, I don't like the timed ones. I prefer temperature-based ones. So if you're in a colder environment, you get longer and things like that. And it's not a necessity. It's just, I feel it's a little bit of a cheaper way of doing it, but that's what they've picked. Okay, so let's go over some good and bad, and I'll show you some lights that I checked it with, and then we'll do some comparisons. So just quickly, good. I like the clip. It's like a stainless steel, very strong. High CRI. If you get the Nichia like me, you won't get the high CRI on the Cree option. Nice tint again on the Nichia. It's neutral. If you want a cool white, you're going to have to go for the lower CRI of the Cree emitter. I like the big attachment hole. I think that's important. And this is big as well. Look at the size of that. I hate poxy little ones where it becomes an impossibility to use, where they're absolutely minuscule. Here's an example. Let's have a look. I mean, that's not that bad. It's double width, but you see that? That's harder to thread and put split links through and things. It's not that bad, but some of them are terrible. So that is something that I think they've done well. You know, good job on the attachment options. Size wise, it's nice and small. You know, I think this is a nice small EDC light. Well done on that. It is decent TIR. It does a good job. It floods out, which is what you want on a EDC. Although there are slightly better options, I would argue, and I'll show you in the beam shots in a moment. Bad, I mean, straight off. Micro USB, come on, we need Type C. No E-lock, which makes no sense when it's not a recessed button. I just don't understand that. And change the button a bit. It's disappointing, that. It's a little bit disappointing. So anyway, so what we'll do is, in fact, let's bring a picture in. Okay. Right, so what I did was I went out and I tried it. I took a photograph, same exposure with every single photograph. I held the light in exactly the same position. I tried to be as fair as humanly possible here. And what I did was I tested against a load of other similar sized lights or same form factor. So we'll go through them one by one. I think that's the easiest way. So top left is the light that we're looking at, the RovyVon A21. So what can we see? It's slightly floody, not that floody. I mean, this is at a little distance. I purposely did that to look for flood. So this isn't that close. You know, you've got a bit of distance here, but it's very bright in the middle. Those trees are nicely illuminated. The floor is nicely illuminated. The colours are quite good, even though it's quite bright. And you can see the bridge in the background behind those trees. A little bit of flood, not that much though, is there? This seems to be more of a light which tries to project instead of going for like just a flood or anything like that. So you do get a bit of distance. Now, if this is a keychain light, you may want a little bit more flood, and that's represented in those other ones. So if we go to the next one, this is kind of an extreme example, but it's the same size, not USB rechargeable, and it's using an SST20, and you're getting about 1400 lumens rather than the 700 on mine. Again, you could say, well, that's not a fair comparison, but it is for size, isn't it, when you think about it? And you can see there, excellent tint, really, really nice. No overexposure there in the middle, very floody. Although you could possibly argue that the RovyVon's doing a better job right in the middle on that hot spot. You're going to get more throw. Yeah, you probably would, even though the Lumen Top FWAA has more lumens. And the next one along is the Sofa SC21, also like similar design. It does have USB charging using an SST20 side button, and this time it will use Angular, so you can have a complex UI if you really want to. So what can we see there? A lot of similarities between the RovyVon there, although it's slightly less overexposed in the middle. I would offer straight away that the FWAA and the SC21 are both wider flooders, because that tree on the right, you can hardly see it on the A21, whereas on both of those, much better. You know, you can see it. Although you can see that the SC21 is slightly lacking on throw. FWAA has got more, but you know, it's not really a fair comparison here. And it's slightly better on the background when you compare it to the RovyVon. So if you want more throw, you go for a more traditional type. Nichia Tip SE. So the Tip SE is the second iteration of the Tip, very popular, kind of an old design, but they did update it. And the Tip SE outputs about 700 lumens because it uses a dual emitter. I think that does a pretty decent job. If you compare it to the RovyVon above, you can see it's better on that tree on the right. It's more floody. It doesn't seem as bright in the middle, and that bridge is slightly less illuminated, although the river bank in the background is more noticeable to me than it is in the RovyVon. So better, even though it should be the same amount of lumens. So that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, the tint isn't going to be as nice, and the color rendering index isn't going to be as nice. So they're the things you need to take into consideration. And it looks different. It's you know, like rectangular. So Nichia Tip V1. So the Tip V1 is the first iteration of the Tip design. So it's about 360 lumens, and it uses a frosted optic. I think that does a remarkably good job for such an old light. I think that does a good job. There's colour rendering's poor. It's quite a white, harsh light, but I think that does a good job. It's not so good on certain bits, but I think that does really, really good. I've got no complaints with that. You can't see in this picture. Now, you might look at that and think, well, hang on, how can the V1 of the Tip look better than the Tip SE? I don't understand. Well, what's happening there is you can't see this, but it's very focused within that frame. Anything to the left and right of that frame rapidly drops off, and now you can't see that. When I was there, the Tip SE didn't have that. It was still illuminating to the left and right. So that's why the V1 actually looks better, even though it's a lot less lumens, and the battery would last longer. But there you go. So the Nightcore Tip 2 is 720 lumens, I think, off the top of my head, but it has that nice removable, I'll show you in a moment actually, it has the nice removable key magnet on the back. Very similar to the Tip V1. It actually doesn't look as bright, but again, it floods out more to the sides, which you can't see in that frame because I was relatively close, and because I'm doing a keychain one here, so it's better on side vision and peripheral, whereas the V1 might look better, it isn't in totality, even though it's brighter in that specific frame. Nightcore Tiny V1 on the bottom there was the first Tiny, so T-I-N-I, that was. V1, very nice, battery runs down rather quick though, that's the problem. But really the Tip V1, Tiny V1, sorry, is really good for its size, but battery doesn't last very long, about 380 lumens, 370, something like that. Nightcore Tiny V2 is very similar. They slightly redesigned it with a metal shell, and it's, you know, it lasts longer and it's got a little screen on. But in this instance here, I think that does a better job than the V1. But comparing it to the Rovyvon, I would say it's brighter. Even though it's around 500 lumens, it just looks brighter. It's also throwing further into the distance. If you compare the far bank of the Rovyvon, we'll zoom in here in that right hand corner to the Tiny V2, you can see much better in the distance, much better. You've got to ask yourself though, where do you want the lumens to go? Do you want them to go into a distance, or are you going to be doing stuff up close? Bear in mind that's quite a distance there, you know, that was right across a river, so I'll just be fair there. So we'll zoom back out there. And then you've got the Nightcore Tup, 1000 lumens, even though it looks, really, it doesn't look that good, does it? Because what it's doing is, even though it's TIR, it's actually trying to get a bit of throw. So it's poor for peripheral there, very poor on flood. It's almost on par, slightly brighter than the Rovyvon, but all those other ones put it to shame when you look at it. You know, all the other ones are putting that to shame in regards to side light. In other words, what you can see floody wise. So Tup, again, quite large as well and bulky. Anyway, so we'll get rid of this photo. Okay, right, let's get back to what we're supposed to be talking about here. So I'll show you the lights that I did compare it to. Here they are here. I did check it with some other ones, but these were the main competitors. Similar size or form factor. So I compared it to the Tup, 1000 lumens, but you do get that funky little screen, which is nice. You know, it gives you a little countdown. So I've got 70 hours on that setting, and you can go straight to 1000 lumens. But as we saw from those images, it's very bright in the middle, but then not so good at the sides, is it? Which is a shame. So you're losing out there, and a lot fatter and bulkier look, much more bulky. This will be better in the pocket. Turn that off. Also I think they're overpriced. We'll compare it to the two Tips. So there's the first one, which did an excellent job in that frame, but then to the sides it was rubbish, whereas this was okay in the frame. That actually looked better, but then to the sides this was better, but that's because it's using two TIRs there, so you get a nice floody round sort of peripheral vision. So you've got to ask yourself, what do you want? And this is about 320, 360 lumens, I think, whereas the SE goes up to around, I think it's 700, so it doesn't last as long, but much brighter. But size wise, you know, not bad. Look, obviously this is slightly bigger. And again, harsh white lights on all of them. I also checked it against the SC21. Nice budget light from Sofern here, well done. Again, yes, this, you could say, well, that's got the button problem, why are you not having to go with that? Well, I did, but that has e-lock out, so you can't lock that, so that mitigates that. But it's a more traditional orange peel reflector rather than this TIR. But pretty decent, as you saw from the pictures. So and more throwy because it's an SST20. Here is the Tip 2, which again has this innovative thing here. So look, you can just, it's magnet. There's the charge and two neodymium magnets, boom, straight on. So if you've got a big bunch of keys, you can just pull that straight off and get on with using it. Boom, there you go. Very bright. 720 lumens, really good, nice metal body there, and here's your little clip. You can take that clip off, you don't have to have that on, so you can't make it smaller, but it's the double setup, a bit like the Tip SE, but slightly more powerful. So that was the other one, and I compared it against the two Nichia Tinies. So there's the Tiny V1, very impressive, but not so hard wearing. You can see that the paint's starting to come off, look, and it'll come off here eventually. Micro USB, which is annoying. The latest one isn't micro USB, it is Type C, and I'll show you that there, Type C, and it does have one of the funky screens, which I like. I think that's the future, because I want to be able to plug things in with a USB and reprogram them and set different modes, and that's what I want to see in the future. Although you can't do that on the Nichias, but it does at least give you a countdown, lumen count, you know, expected run times and things like that. But very bright, 500 lumens, and it's about 360, 370 on there, so turn that off. Okay, so I've talked enough, I've waffled enough. What do I think of this light? Okay, so let's think about this. There's lots of good points. I like the clip. It's high CRI if you get the right one, nice tint if you get the right one, big attachment hole on here and here. That flap works well, it's rechargeable, it recharges rapidly, it's a nice small EDC and a decent TIR, although there are floodier options, so just be aware that this tries to go for a bit of throw, so you may remember it's kind of in this it's a kind of a tweener. So you've got all these keychain lights, and then you've got something like this, which is slightly bigger, even though they've got keychain attachments. They're a very small EDC, aren't they, when you think about it? So with that in mind, there's lots of nice, good parts. Don't like the button, no E-lock. The button would be fine if you had an E-lock, but it hasn't, so it needs to be recessed, and micro USB. So let's give this a mark out of 10, because I've waffled enough, and I'll show you plenty of footage. I'm going to give this a 7. I think there's room for improvement. RovyVon, you do some nice lights, but there always seems to be something where I can say, well, I don't like this. Change the button or add E-lock. It can't be that hard to add E-lock and Type C. Other than that, if you bought this, you would enjoy it. I enjoyed using it. I carried it for more than the 2 weeks that I normally do. I carried it for 3 weeks. But it did go off automatic by accident in my pocket because there's no E-lock, and you can't take the battery out or disengage it to stop that. Annoying, so that needs fixing. So a healthy 7, well done, but improvements need to be made. Right, let's get outside. Enough of me waffling. I'll show you loads of footage and side by side. So a 7 out of 10. It's okay, it needs a little bit of improvement though. Right, let's get outside.